Now, listen to this. This is the hidden truth. Are you building your personal life like these governments, depending on others to feed you spiritually? Or are you standing strong as the co-worker with God? That's the awakening challenge Harold is pointing us to. So, I ask you again, if God came down, would you notice? Or would you be too distracted by your expectations? Maybe God has already come down. What if God came down? Would we recognize him? Or would we argue over whose God is the right God? Or would we finally open our hearts or fight with our minds? This is not just a question, it's a title of Harold's powerful talk, and it shook me to the depth of my soul. Hi, beautiful souls. My name is Beatrice, and I welcome you back again to my Journey Faithful Compassion Hub. Here we reflect, react, and open our hearts to the spiritual truth that can guide us through life. And today I'm reacting to a powerful talk from Harold Klemp titled, If God Came Down. And what a title that is. I kept asking myself, why did Harold choose this title? But I believe it's because if God came down today, we wouldn't see him with our physical eyes, but we would recognize God through love, through the light in our hearts. The question itself is meant to awaken us. Are we ready to recognize the divine when it comes in a form we don't expect?
Good evening and welcome to the teachings of Eck. I feel so inadequate often to bring the message of Eck to you because the light of God shines in you. My job is simply to make you aware that there is such a thing as the light of God, and then help you become aware of your own divinity. Now, this would be an easy job if everyone were alike. If we were all cut out of the exact same cloth, same feelings, same experiences. But the fact is that each of us and each of you is an entirely unique human being. And so trying to present a message of any sort to people becomes extremely difficult, especially when you're talking about something like the teachings of Eck. We're talking about truth, and I say truth as I know it, because some of you who are listening will accept it as truth to some degree, and others will not accept it at all. And this, of course, is the freedom that each person enjoys or should enjoy, because you cannot comprehend more than your experience in life has given you the capacity to understand. You cannot. And so you must recognize that your understanding of God is sacred, but so also is the understanding of your neighbor. The title for the talk this evening is If God Came Down. It sets up an interesting bit of speculation, if God came down. First of all, we have so many different concepts of God, and everyone's concept of God is right. At least it's safer to say that everyone's concept of God is right, rather than try to pick out a few people or a group and say that person's concept of God is wrong or that group's concept of God is wrong. Because who's to say? Another infallible human being? And yet this goes on all the time. And this is the reason that people have such a hard time getting along with each other. The Mideast, the Near East, the Far East, and even in our own country, there is all sorts of violence. And my wife often asks me, why do people do that to each other? Why must it be? And I said, simply because there are people learning, trying to learn how to become more godlike. And then, of course, she's wondering, she understands more about this. She realizes that long before people become more godlike, they become very ungodlike until they learn that the law of life exacts and returns exactly to each person what that person gives to life. And this we call the law of karma.
This made me pause. We fight over religions, but what if every person's understanding of God is a simple part of their journey? Can you imagine in a world where we stop trying to prove whose God is greater and instead ask, how is God showing himself in your life? This talk made me stop and look into my own soul. The truth is powerful that I couldn't keep it to myself, and I had to share it with you. We are always taught that karma is not a punishment, it's a mirror. What you give comes back until you learn. So ask yourself, what energy have you been putting into the world this week? And what is life reflecting back to me? If you can practice this until you master it, then you approach life with better understanding.
Yesterday I was talking with youth in the Eck organization, and I had planned to just go to the meeting and sit down with the young people and listen. Because, as an adult, the thing you're supposed to do with young people is listen. And I don't often listen enough, so I said, this time I'm going to listen, to listen, to listen. I sat down, and we hadn't been in there a few minutes, and I said, well, what's on your agenda? What would you like to talk about? And they said, well, we feel that you have something to tell us. And I wasn't ready to tell them anything about anything. So I just sat there for a few minutes, looked at the young people, and I saw the future, not only of Eckankar, but the future of our society, and not just of the society in the United States, but of every country in this world. And I said, if anyone needs to understand that Earth is really the ashcan of the universe, and I'm speaking of it in a positive sense here, if you'll bear with me for a minute. That you may do everything you can to work within the political and social structure of your own country. Do what you can, but realize that no matter what you do, you will never create the great society on earth. Great society equaling heaven. It will never happen because that is not in the divine plan. Back in the mid-60s, President Johnson of the United States made a great effort to create the Great Society. The Great Society was to create a society free from the imbalances and the wants and the poverty that had occurred before. And today you can look around and see how successful the Great Society was. And in fact, it wasn't successful at all. And we are now embarking on another phase of socialism called, at least I call it, the Great Society Part 2. Why? Because the Great Society Part 1 was a disaster. If it had worked, we wouldn't need the social programs that we are about to tax the spiritual life out of people today. Now, I mention this in light of the purpose of the Eck teachings. What is our purpose here? It is to learn to become co-workers with God. To become a co-worker with God. Does this evoke a vision of a person or a people who are dependent upon a government for their bread, food, or even for their shelter and clothing. A co-worker with God, a slavish human being. This is what we're going for again. I'm speaking about the spiritual side of this because as a spiritual leader of a very insignificant spiritual group, and we are, and I have to mention, because compared to Christianity, Islam, Buddhism, Hinduism, those are all like big puddles where we don't even add up to a drop in each one of these puddles. And we aren't even a drop of rain. But I'll speak my mind anyway, because it's my nature, I suppose. But I also want you to remember and to understand that our goal as Eckists is to become a co-worker with God. What does this mean? That we become fully able to help in the divine plan of serving life. Serving life. You'll find that the conflict in the former Yugoslavia is between Christians, the Russian Orthodox, Roman Catholic on one side, the Serbs and the Croats, and the Muslims. And each of the three sides is busy as fast as they can to get as much ground as they can, because they know if they won't, one of the other two is going to do it to them. And frankly, sometimes I wonder about people and about the need for our government to feel that we have to become the savior of the world. And I think perhaps one of the most interesting things to me is when the Soviet Union fell. Immediately, leaders in the United States jumped up and said, "The Soviet Union fell because of us." The Soviet Union didn't fall because of the United States. The Soviet Union fell because of itself. The Soviet Union caved in upon itself. Basically, the bottom line always comes down to money and a country's management of it. It's no different from an individual's management of his or her own monies. The country fell in upon itself, spending more than it was able to produce, setting up a socialist system that took away any incentive of people to work and produce. It killed the spirit of soul. And this is my concern with socialism. And this is my concern with socialist programs, where a government says that it is going to try to make everyone equal. There is no equality. People do not come into this life equal because they have an unbalanced book of karma that they bring with them into this lifetime. It's not to say that we don't work with compassion and try to help people, but to legislate this from top at the expense of individuals' freedom, which is what happens. This is, I feel, responsible for the spiritual decline of any great country. But whenever a supposed socialist government, which may take any face of any political party, whenever it begins to supposedly become very liberal, you will find often a very heavy hand that tries to put caps on everything. And at the same time, it raises taxes for your own good, so that you have less to spend and less ability to move on your own. Where is the American dream? Where you can come here, work hard, and make something for yourself and your family. Because America was developed for the people who had the desire to have freedom. And the government can tax that away and can turn a nation of people who have in the past stood for religious freedom, they can take away this ability to be an example to the rest of the world. They can take away the ability of a country to be a shining light for others and say, bring me your weary and your troubled. And I feel that though we are a small group and no one listens, I think that socialism and its programs of the past 2-3 decades are responsible for the spiritual decline of this country, and not just this country, of other countries. And if you want to have a measure of how socialism is doing, the thermometer is crime. Look at the gauge of crime. Crime shouldn't be going up in a country where people are happy and where we've had the Great Society, Part 1. People should be so satisfied by now, just a decade, 2 or 3 later, that things would be very much better. Instead, things are worse. And so we're going to have more and more intervention by government to help you live your lives better and better and better. My concern is not political reform or social reform, because I know that Earth is an ash can. This is a place where soul has come to try out its aggression, its arrogance upon its fellow human being, and do that until the fellow human being fights back and practices his or her aggression and arrogance, until the two finally fall in a puddle and they say, there must be something better than this. There must be more to life. Political leaders, they are caught up in the rapture of the fight of power for power, because they don't understand the power of love. They don't understand the concept, because it's not their spiritual experience at this time. So then where does Eck fit into all this? We know that it is our responsible to do whatever we can within our circle of influence to make a better life for those around us. In whatever way we can. So if you choose to work in one way or another at a political level, great. If you choose not to, that's great. It doesn't matter. But the purpose of Eckankar, as I said, is not to make political or social changes, but it is to tell people about the light and sound of God. Why? So that people who learn how to sing Hu, this ancient name for God, can find help and comfort no matter what the political situation may bring in the future. Sing the word Hu, as you heard before the session began. Sing it to yourself. If there's trouble in your family or trouble at work, silently sing this word to yourself, and then let the Holy Spirit come in and help you. And this is what the value is of Hu, and this is what we're here for. To simply let people know about Hu, this ancient name for God, and how to sing it to help themselves. Because Hu leads people to their own experiences inwardly and outwardly with the light and sound of God. They're going to see chaos and destruction around themselves, and they will know there will never be a heaven on earth. The Great Society will never be heaven on earth, but they can have heaven on earth within their own hearts. And if any of you can achieve peace of mind and a state of joy when all those around you are losing theirs, then you have come much further than many of the people in many of the religions today.
How often often do we think if only politicians changed, if the laws changed, this world would be perfect. But Harold Klemp is saying this world is not meant to be heaven. So I ask you, are we awake in a class or are we daydreaming? Because every hardship, every joy is all part of soul's education. This isn't just about politics, it's about soul of the humanity. Government rise and fall. System promise heaven on earth but deliver disappointments. Why? Because they are built on power, not love. Now, listen to this. This is the hidden truth. Are you building your personal life like these governments, depending on others to feed you spiritually? Or are you standing strong as the co-worker with God? That's the awakening challenge Harold is pointing us to. To me, this is the heart of it all. Being a co-worker with God doesn't mean waiting for miracles. It means becoming a miracle in someone else's life. Ask yourself today, how did I save a life? Did I bring peace where there was conflict? Did I bring love where there was fear? That's being a co-worker with God. We spend so much energy looking for heaven in governments, in leaders, in systems. But Harold Klemp says heaven is inside job. You is the key. When I first started singing You, I didn't realize how powerful it was. It brought me so much peace when everything outside fall apart. That's how you know it's real. So, the question I leave you with, when the world loses its peace, can you still hold heaven in your heart? That's true freedom. That's true spirituality. So, I ask you again, if God came down, would you notice? Or would you be too distracted by your expectations? Maybe God has already come down. Through the love in a friend, through the whisper in meditation, or through the sacred sound you. The title If God Came Down is not just a speculation. It's an invitation to open your heart, to see God in everyday life, and to become a co-worker in love. Thank you for joining me on my journey, Faithful Compassion Hub. Let's keep asking deeper questions. Let's keep awakening together. And if this video touched you, please like, share, and subscribe so it can reach many souls who are ready to hear this truth. I love you all. May the light and sound of God guide you always.